Hello, I'm Odelia Barton, and I will be talking today about my original research paper. Now, I will admit right off the bat that I came to my topic with a personal bias. I have been a devoted collector of Diane von Furstenberg wrap dresses for years, both vintage and modern. But what began as a love of fashion led me somewhere unexpected, to a compelling argument that the wrap dress, which debuted in 1974, is not just a fashion icon, but pop art's most democratic and enduring translation. From canvas to closet, how DVF translated pop art into fashion. Warhol, Lichtenstein, and the wrap dress. The pop art movement, defined by renowned artists Andy Warhol and Roy Lichtenstein in the 1960s and 1970s, pushed the democratization of art and the rise of personal branding to revolutionary new extremes. These artists' use of mass-produced, commercially inflected imagery and their embrace of celebrity rejected the serious emotional intensity associated with the earlier abstract expressionist generation. During the same period, Diane von Furstenberg emerged from a fashion landscape shaped by women's rights and the need for stylish, feminine daywear for the new career woman, a marked departure from the tiny miniskirts of the 60s and the menswear-inspired suits currently inundating 70s workplace fashion for women. Her iconic 1974 wrap dress embodied pop art's radical proposition that serially manufactured consumer objects could carry the aesthetic and cultural weight of fine art. She translated the visual language and democratic ethos of Warhol and Lichtenstein into wearable form that she then made available to a greater population of women. This translation also helped make DVF a household name, synonymous with 1970s fashion and with the women who were reshaping it. Hereafter, we'll be referring to Diane von Furstenberg as DVF, the name of her brand, how she refers to herself, and as her children refer to her as well. And thus my thesis. The DVF wrap dress, and the iconic DVF brand that crystallized around it, stands as the fashion world's heir to the pop art revolution. To understand the visual and cultural strategies DVF inherited, it is necessary to briefly trace the origins of pop art itself. First coined in 1954, the term pop art referred at the time to products of the mass media, not to works of art that drew upon popular culture as it tends to today. An American phenomenon, pop art actually had two births, one in England in the 1950s and another in New York City, where it found its greatest expansion in the 1960s and continued into the 1970s. Pop artists celebrated consumerism, celebrity, advertising, TV, and the greatest of these artists democratized art by making it available for the very first time to everyone, not just the ultra-wealthy. Warhol and Lichtenstein remained prominent pop art figures in New York City after the 60s and into the 70s as they championed and critiqued television, advertising, celebrity, and consumerism. Both artists drew inspiration from the urban environment and media culture of the city, which significantly shaped their work. Warhol advanced this philosophy even further by transforming himself and pop art into a personal brand, using his Manhattan studio showplace, The Factory, to craft a highly visible, media-driven artistic persona. Two artworks in particular embody the attitudes and aesthetics of pop art, and I will be discussing them here in relation to DVF's wrap dress. The first is Andy Warhol's Marilyn Diptych from 1962. Marilyn Diptych is a monumental silkscreen print executed in silkscreen ink and acrylic paint on canvas, measuring over 6 by 9 feet and currently housed at Tate Modern in London. Marilyn Diptych exemplifies pop art's fascination with repetition, celebrity culture, and the mechanical reproduction of images. By 1962, Warhol had fully embraced silk screening as a method of replicating photographic imagery, a process that allowed him, and often his assistants, to reproduce the same image repeatedly in varying colors. This serial arrangement of Marilyn Monroe's face, vibrant on the left, fading on the right, transforms a media photograph into a mass-produced icon, collapsing the boundary between art and commodity while employing pop art's principle of consuming existing likenesses created for mass distribution. And crucially here, Warhol's choice to use both silk screening and mass-produced images was how he democratized his art and made previously deemed low art something worthy of collecting. Now, unlike DVF would do later, Warhol's democratization was not about price. It was about visual and cultural accessibility. Warhol's imagery was drawn from things everyone already knew: soup cans, celebrity faces, newspaper headlines. So the art spoke to everyone, regardless of whether they could afford to own it. Now we have artwork number 2, Lichtenstein's Mirror number 3, or 6 panels, from 1971, currently displayed at the Art Institute of Chicago. Here, Lichtenstein similarly explores pop art's visual expression of commercial printing, as well as an interest in surface and flatness. In Mirror number 3, his bold graphic stripes, his famous painted representation of printed Ben-Day dots, and the simplified comic strip shapes, all rendered in bright primary colors against a stark white background, mimic the aesthetics of mass market imagery. He turns the mirror, a symbol of self-image, into a stylized, reproducible object. By replicating the visual style of commercial printing, Lichtenstein blurred the line between serially produced and unique art objects. Like Warhol, Lichtenstein challenged the idea that a unique handcrafted object was inherently more valuable than a massively produced one. Through these strategies, Lichtenstein not only transformed pop culture sources into fine art, but also prompted a reevaluation of what constitutes art itself. In this way, Lichtenstein also democratized his art by visual and cultural accessibility. And it's noteworthy that the pulsating patterns and striking surfaces of Mirror number 3 anticipate the vibrant textiles and bold prints that would come to characterize 1970s fashion. When DVF launched her wrap dress in 1974, it emerged from the practical demands of the era rather than from any deliberate attempt at myth-making. Yet, like the pop art works of Warhol and Lichtenstein, it quickly crystallized into an enduring cultural icon. No one was more surprised than DVF herself at the success of what was essentially an afterthought. She was inspired to create the wrap dress after watching Julie Nixon Eisenhower on television being interviewed about the Watergate scandal while wearing a matching Diane von Furstenberg blouse and skirt set. Seeing this, DVF imagined a stylish, one-piece uniform a busy modern woman could wear to the office and then to dinner afterwards. It's amusing that during this incredibly important cultural moment, Nixon's own daughter commenting on Watergate, she begins to create her own very different but equally important cultural moment. Vanessa Friedman, current chief fashion critic for the New York Times, attributes the dress's influence to its ability to embody the many shifting roles of women at the time and its financial democratization. She said, quote, "This dress empowered a giant swath of women who could afford to wear it, which, to be honest, is not true of most high fashion." End quote. The dress emerged at a moment when many more women were entering the workforce, and its original $80 price point made it accessible to a broad consumer base. The boom to the fashion industry was immediate. The wrap dress took off like a stampede, appearing on city streets around the world, and by the end of 1975, production had surged to more than 15,000 dresses per week. Over the next 5 years, orders totaled an astonishing $35 million. Now, I didn't really address this in my paper, but as someone who sold high-end vintage fashion for over 20 years, my first thought was $80 still seems a bit high for the 70s, and it was. It equates to a little over $500 today. But since high-end designers like Dior and Gucci start their day wear at about $800 today and go well into the thousands of dollars, a $500 high-end designer piece today is still somewhat more accessible if you can afford it. Same concept in the 70s. Dior and Gucci daywear averaged about $150 and went up to about $800 in the 70s. So an $80 designer piece was still something of a bargain, again, if you could afford it. And the new 70s career woman definitely tried to afford it. Made of stretchy silk jersey with a V neckline, a tie waist, and a skirt that fell just below the knee, DVF's wrap dress was comfortable, lightweight, and universally flattering, a stark contrast to the restrictive clothing and masculine suiting often expected of women in professional settings. For the very first 1974 iteration of the wrap dress, she deliberately chose snakeskin stripes and leopard-spotted prints so, as she stated in her autobiography, that women would feel sexy, slinky, and feline, capturing the confidence she wanted the garment to project. This reassertion of unapologetic femininity in the workplace was revolutionary in itself. Indeed, when the wrap dress premiered in a full-page advertisement featuring DVF herself wearing the garment for Women's Wear Daily in 1974, she included the tagline, "Feel like a woman, wear a dress." Offered in a variety of cheeky and eye-catching prints, from bold animal prints to colorful geometric patterns, the jersey wrap dress was a study in contrasts. Fun yet practical, proper yet sexy, a reminder that women in the 70s were anything but a monolith. Now let us compare the works at hand. Analyses of the artists and the designer will make clear that DVF's wrap dress inherits and reimagines the very strategies that defined pop art. Repetition is the first and clearest point of connection, and Warhol's Marilyn diptych makes the logic unmistakable. His serial images of Marilyn Monroe, multiplied across silver canvases, visualize the mass production and commodification of celebrity culture. DVF's wrap dress, produced at a peak of 25,000 units per week, offered a parallel statement in fashion. A garment designed for reproducibility, circulating through the marketplace with the same logic of seriality. Both transform commercial objects into cultural icons, asserting that repetition itself can carry aesthetic and symbolic power. Placed side by side, Warhol's Marilyn diptych and DVF's 1976 Newsweek cover make their shared logic of repetition unmistakable in a formal breakdown as well. The diptych arranges a bold, graphic image in a serial grid, while the green and white Newsweek dress deploys a bold, chain branch motif across the garment's surface. The diptych transforms a woman's face into a reproducible icon. The Newsweek cover transforms a woman's body into a walking graphic statement. In both cases, the female face and figure becomes the site where production, repetition, and cultural impact converge in a way never seen before. Next, Lichtenstein's graphic surfaces in mirror number 3 find a clear parallel in DVF's prints and textiles. His hand-painted Ben-Day dots were more than a technique. They were part of a recognizable artistic identity. And just as Lichtenstein's work depended on bold color, graphic clarity, and surface appeal, DVF's wrap dress was defined almost entirely by its graphic prints, bold patterns, and an instantly recognizable silhouette. Both mirror number 3 and DVF's red swirl print wrap dress, famously worn by actress Sybil Shepherd in the movie Taxi Driver in 1976, demonstrate that the surface is not decoration but subject. If you take away the dots in mirror number 3, you have no subject. The dots are not describing something else, they are the image. Likewise, the swirling red and white print of the wrap dress is not ornament applied to a garment that exists independently underneath. Structurally, the dress is little more than a rectangle of jersey with a wrap and a tie. Its identity resides entirely in its surface. Lichtenstein proved that surface and the medium that produces it could be the subject of high art. DVF took that logic and applied it to the body. The jersey becomes the canvas, and the print becomes the Ben-Day dots. But the woman wearing the dress activates the entire system in a way a canvas never can. Perhaps more importantly, Warhol, Lichtenstein, and DVF each democratized their respective mediums in their own way. Warhol and Lichtenstein did it through those visual strategies that collapsed the boundary between high art and mass culture, and DVF through a financial accessibility that brought higher-end design to a wider customer base. Regarding self-branding, pop art turned the artist into a brand, while DVF turned both the designer and the dress into one. Warhol stated this in his autobiography, quote, "I started as a commercial artist, and I want to finish as a business artist. Being good in business is the most fascinating kind of art." End quote. Beyond just simple branding, Warhol transformed the factory into a production line for art, performance, and myth-making. More than just a workplace, the factory became a fully immersive environment. Theatrical lighting designer Billy Name covered the space in aluminum foil and metallic silver paint, creating a shimmering, otherworldly stage set for Warhol's brand. The factory drew an eclectic mix of students, young artists, actors, rock stars, and transvestites, and soon became one of the trendiest gathering places for the in crowd and the center of New York's cultural universe. Some of his most recognizable and most successful works, Campbell's Soup Cans, Dollar Signs, and of course Marilyn, functioned not only as artworks, but as symbols of a new cultural era. In this sense, Warhol did not merely make art. He made a brand ecosystem and an art empire. At the same time, DVF herself was building a fashion empire. And both innovators understood that in the age of huge advertising and broadcasting, branding was as powerful as the work itself. Warhol and Lichtenstein rose to prominence during a moment when artists were becoming celebrities and celebrities were becoming the subjects of art. Warhol, in particular, cultivated a public persona that blurred the boundaries between artist, icon, and brand. DVF also moved within that same New York cultural network, and Warhol actually created portraits of DVF, placing her squarely inside the pop art celebrity ecosystem. A journalist visiting her home even noted the massive Warhol portraits of herself displayed on the walls. Like Warhol, and in a quieter way Lichtenstein, DVF understood the cultural phenomenon her wrap dress had become, and the importance of this in self-branding. She reflected on this in 2014 before the 40th anniversary celebration of her creation. She said, quote, "Sometimes I've resented the wrap, meaning I design other things, but this is about honoring that dress, which has given me my freedom, my independence, paid my bills, made me famous and all that. And that dress is now in sociology classes. It has a life on its own." End quote. Just as Warhol's personal brand expanded through the ongoing media explosion of the 1960s and 1970s, so did DVF's. Her 1976 Rags to Riches Newsweek cover story marked the moment her image and her dress became inseparable. As she recounts in her autobiography, quote, "President Gerald Ford had been slated for the cover, having just won the Republican presidential primary, but the editors must have thought I'd make a more appealing sell and decided to put me on the cover instead. We all know the value of publicity, but the Newsweek cover launched a tsunami." End quote. So, in conclusion, taken together, these parallels reveal that DVF did not merely echo the visual language of pop art, she translated it into a new medium with its own narrative. Warhol and Lichtenstein used repetition, surface, commercial aesthetics, and celebrity fascination to collapse the boundaries between high art and mass culture. DVF utilized these same strategies in fashion, where the body itself became the site of meaning. Her iconic wrap dress operated through serialization, graphic surface, and self-branding, but it also introduced a dimension absent from pop art: the lived experience of the woman who wore it. In this sense, the wrap dress did much more than just inherit pop art strategies. It did more than just repeat an existing ethos. It moved through the world, democratizing style and asserting feminine autonomy. with DVF herself as the living embodiment of it all. She was the brand and continues to be today. As a result, Diane von Furstenberg's 1974 wrap dress stands not only as the fashion world's heir to the pop art revolution, but as its most dynamic and enduring translation.